Travels and Traditions with Burt Wolfe is a classic travel journal, a record of Burt's search for information about our world and how we fit into it. Burt travels to the source of each story, trying to find the connections between our history and what is happening today. What he discovers can improve our lives and our understanding of the world around us. And of course, there's always Burt's slightly irreverent sense of humor.
Uh-oh.
Oh!
Oh, my goodness. We're going to need a bigger can. In part one of Gone Fishing, we discovered the history of deep-sea sport fishing and why the Palm Beaches of Florida became the world epicenter of the sport. We learned why people like Ernest Hemingway and the Lone Ranger were attracted to the sport. We visited with a slightly dysfunctional family that invented the sport fishing boat and how those boats have changed over the years. In part two of Gone Fishing, we'll take a look at the nautical phrases that have come into common use, like a cup of joe and wallop, the importance of catch and release, the women who have become stars of deep-sea sport fishing, a boat mechanic who flies his plane around the world to help fix boats, and I will catch a shark.
I'm just hanging on right now. There's a line going on, huh?
The Rybovich Boat Yard in West Palm Beach, Florida, is the world epicenter for sport fishing boats. In 1955, the yard launched Georgia May, a 43-foot enclosed deckhouse fisherman. The boat featured an air-conditioned salon, a private master stateroom, a head, and a full galley with a custom refrigerator freezer, and crew accommodations. It marked the beginning of a trend towards boats with a larger cruising range and more amenities, like the head. I should like to pause here for a few moments and address various elements in naval terminology. The head on a ship is the toilet. At the very front of the great sailing ships, a place for the crew to relieve themselves was placed on each side of the bowsprit, where the figurehead was mounted. Today, the head is a mechanical toilet, the use of which can challenge even the most technical of minds. And as long as we're discussing technical terms on ships that have come into common use, let me explain a couple of my favorites. In 1913, President Woodrow Wilson appointed Joseph Daniels to be the Secretary of the Navy. Daniels allowed women to join the Navy and made it possible for ordinary sailors in the fleet to go to the Naval Academy. He also put an end to the wine service at the officers' mess. As a result, the strongest drink you could get on a U.S. naval vessel was a cup of coffee, which they named after Secretary Joseph, a cup of joe. I'm sure that the elimination of the wine service made the officers feel sad. Well, when someone is feeling sad, they are often described as feeling blue. The phrase is a reference to an old custom practiced by sailing ships. If they lost their captain or senior member of the crew during the voyage, they would fly blue flags, and as they returned to home port, they would paint a blue ribbon completely around the boat. During a war between the French and the English that took place in the 1500s, the French attacked and burned the English town of Brighton. In response, King Henry VIII, he of the many wives, sent Admiral Wallop to devastate the French coast. And ever since then, a devastating hit has been known as a wallop. Back to the story of sport fishing. As the oldest son of Pop Rybovich, who was the founder of the yard, Johnny Rybovich was responsible for its day-to-day operations. During the late 50s, after developing the fighting chair, aluminum outriggers, the tuna tower, and the tuna door, Johnny decided to spend more time fishing.
Oh!
Oh, my goodness! We're going to need a bigger can. Johnny began to take a look at the effect that sport fishing and commercial fishing was having on the local waters. He'd always been a conservationist, but in 1950 he formed an organization to promote the catch and release of sailfish. On the first date with the woman who became his wife, they went fishing. And it was during that first date that Kay caught her first sailfish. She wanted to take it back to shore and present her achievement, but Johnny suggested that the proper thing to do would be to release it. From that day forward, Kay became deeply involved in sport fishing and conserving the ocean's resources. She also co-founded the International Women's Fishing Association, which was dedicated to bringing women into a sport that was previously dominated by men. In 1963, Johnny founded the Masters Angling Tournament. It was sponsored by the Sailfish Club in Palm Beach and was the first all-release tournament.
See ya.
While Johnny was becoming increasingly involved with conservation efforts, Emil began to devote more time to his love of flying. During the Second World War, he had been in the Army Air Corps. He was able to convince his brothers that their business would better serve its customers if they had a plane. With an airplane, customers in trouble far from home could have parts or mechanics flown in. They bought a Republic CB seaplane, and Emil became a flying mechanic, rescuing those in need. The Rybovich family was busy building and repairing boats, and at the same time, turning the Palm Beaches into the world's original sports fishing destination.
With the inlet here of Palm Beach Inlet, the Gulf Stream coming so close here, makes the fishing amazing, it makes the water so clear. The closest point in the continental U.S. to the Bahamas, sort of got everything going that when, I know when I first got down here, we took it for granted. It just was beautiful, but until you start to learn what you're around, only then do you appreciate what is here.
Jim Bronstein is an expert on the subject of servicing boats. He's built, owned, and operated marinas around the world. In the early 90s, he became one of the owners of Rybovich.
At Spencer Boat Company, we were an iconic boat yard that was started in the late 40s, around the time that the Rybovich family started the sport fishing building. The Spencer family started to get into repair and maintenance of yachts and sailboats. In 1991, we then acquired Rybovich. All of the Rybovich customers who were diehard sport fish people were taken back by the fact that Spencer Boat Company was acquiring the company. They said, "You can't do this. We're sport fish guys. You're going to ruin us with all these motor yacht and sailboat people. We don't want motor yacht and sailboat. We're fishing guys." All of the Spencer Boat Company customers that we had were also taken back, and they said, "Don't do that. All those sport fish guys, they're going to ruin our etiquette of yachting and motor yachting and sailboating. This is a horrible move." So the day we merged, we wanted to figure out a way to get everybody comfortable with the other side of the fence, so to speak. It was like the Berlin Wall coming down. So we took the fence down, we put a keg of beer on one side, we put the cups and the food on the other side of the fence, and we said, "We are now one company. You've got to cross the line if you want to eat and drink." And that is how the two companies ended up together. And it was quite an event.
As the son of a sailor, I went out on the sea for adventure.
At one point, he helped design a new boat for a son of a sailor, also known as Jimmy Buffett.
I had a lot of years with Jimmy Buffett, and I got to know him pretty well, and one day we bubbled up the idea of doing a sort of a smaller version of a Rybovich, a semi-production boat that was a 42-foot walk-around sport fish boat that we did that got dubbed a Margaritavich, which was not intended to be a a brand, but it sort of stuck.
I thought making television was hard. Michael Rybovich is the grandson of Pop. So I decided I'm going to get a great Rybovich. And I come down and I say, build whatever you think is great, and I give you a check. Once the check clears, what happens next? Between the clearance of the check and when I go to sea.
You probably figure out how you're going to tell your wife about it.
Wait a second. I'm going to get a Rybovich.
What happens next is, with that check, we order the lumber. And the design work begins. And in about 2 years, you're going to be riding away in your brand new boat. We take kind of a personal approach to design work. Burt, the customer comes to us and tells us what he wants. We don't pick out the length or the beam of the boat until we talk to him. It's a total custom project, so we build the boat around his needs. This is a 94-foot sport fisherman. For us, this is the largest thing that has come out of our family stable. Boats seem to be getting bigger and bigger in this day and age for a lot of reasons, mostly because they're traveling great distances to go fishing, so they got to carry a lot of fuel, a lot of accommodations for people to live aboard for an extended period of time. But this is our biggest to date, and we're very excited about it. It'll be powered by a pair of German MTU M96 diesel engines, 2,600 horsepower apiece. So this 94-footer will top out at around 40 knots. She'll carry with her a crew of 4 full-time and have enough fuel capacity to travel at cruise roughly 1,500 miles. So it's a special boat. It's being built to fish the Pacific. She'll go down on her own bottom through the canal and over to Costa Rica and parts unknown up and down the Pacific coast. We start with the hull, and as you can see, the hull's upside down right now. It's easier for us to build that way, especially when it comes to planking the bottom. And then once we finish planking it, we will glass over the mahogany planking, fair that out, and then roll the boat outside and flip it over with 2 cranes.
Right, just all 70-odd feet of it. Flip it. Guys, flip it over now, will you? Harry, would you get a little closer to the front over there?
It's really quite a simple process with 2 cranes, although it is a real spectator attraction.
I bet it is. And then all the fittings go inside.
Once we roll her over, the decks go in her, and then the superstructure goes on her. The engines go in, all the machinery, and at about a boat this size, 2.5 years later, she should be out there fishing.
And you float it off here and make sure it floats evenly.
That is correct.
Did you ever have a boat that didn't float evenly?
We have had a great deal of good luck when it comes to how our boats float and run. But there is always a little nervous anticipation when you first put one over and fuel her, fill her with her fuel, water, holding tank, all that up to capacity to see if she floats on her marks.
I once saw a boat go down and just keep on going, right to the bottom.
That has happened to some very, very good yards over the years, and it is very sad when it happens.
Funny.
We don't want that happening around here.
No.
The process that we use, the techniques that we use are really around 60 years old with the cold molding, which is the laminated in epoxy wooden hull. The biggest challenge we have in this industry now is finding help, and I think that's a common complaint throughout all the trades, of finding young people that are interested in working with their hands and producing something rather than a paper trail every day. Now you notice when you look down here at our new construction that we're building these boats primarily out of wood. And there are several reasons for that. One is that since we're building a total custom boat, the wood allows us to make subtle changes from one boat to another. It is a very forgiving medium in which to work. It allows us to form the hulls into complex shapes without spending a great deal of time and money on tooling. Since each boat is different than the one before it, it would be impossible for us as a custom builder to spend the time and money on tooling for each boat. So a wooden structure like this allows us to make changes. Not only does it allow us that, but in the final product, wood, as the majority of the material in the boat is made from, is very good at absorbing vibration, so that a wood boat is always going to give you a different ride than a plastic or a metal boat. You're going to have a quieter, smoother, more forgiving hull than you will with plastic or metal.
Plus, wood floats. That's very important
right.
in the boat business.
It is important. Wood does float, yeah.
So it takes 2 to 3 years for a boat like this to be built. So I guess that all of your boats come with an owner's will. In the event of my untimely death, I wish my Rybovich boat to go to whoever it is. Not a lot of things you buy where you have to have a will at the time of purchase.
I think this would qualify.
It now appears as if the next generation will take its turn defending the Rybovich name. Dusty, a graduate from Webb Institute of Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering in New York, is the first of all of the Ryboviches to have a formal education in the family business. Alex and Blake have now joined the business, rounding out the 3 brothers of the 4th generation.
It is definitely a family business. It's a lot of fun, yeah, for sure. And not just with my brothers and with my dad, but with everybody here. We're a big family. We've got some carpenters that are 3rd generation carpenters whose fathers worked for the business and whose grandfathers worked for the business, and we're all a big family here.
Dive.
As the poet John Masefield said, I must go down to the sea again, to the lonely sea in the sky. Not that boat. Okay. This time I'm going to sea on the Tall Cotton, a classic 1967 54-foot sports fishing boat.
Well, there's a lot of sport fishing boats. This one's a really nice one. Their boats are made to go faster and go farther and be very comfortable while you go any place in the world to go fishing. The entry of the boat, the bow, is really, really sharp. And that's part of what gives this thing a ride like a Cadillac.
Joining my beloved film crew, which has come to include my son Nicholas, there was the present generation of the Rybovich builders.
Who wants to fish?
There's different techniques to fishing offshore. You've got bottom fishing, you've got kite fishing, you've got trolling.
Fish are enticed by trolling fishing lures designed to resemble squid or other bait fish, or bait behind the boat.
Bait's out.
Multiple lines are often used.
Trolling is good because you have several baits out at one time, so you really have they call it the spread.
What's up next?
We're going to go to the outriggers, I think.
Do it.
Well, we got to fish on first.
We're not going anyplace, we just gotta fish.
All right.
So, outriggers. That's a big fish. A lot of these boats, almost all of them nowadays, have outriggers on them, and the reason for that
That's the outrigger that's going out there.
Come on.
We just caught another fish.
We're just gonna take the hook off.
Right.
On the next one.
We were going to tell you about the outriggers, which are quite interesting. Every time we started to talk about the outriggers, a fish would come there. Now, obviously, they don't understand how television works. Once a fish is properly hooked on a line, the next task is to reel it in.
We try to move the boat ahead to make sure that the line peels off, and we keep the line centered in the back of the boat. Try to help the angler as much as we can.
This thick line, the thicker the line, generally the more its breaking strength is. So the number on the line is the breaking strength. So this is 130. At 130 pounds, this is designed to snap. And anything under that, you should be able to reel it in.
The fishing reels therefore have sophisticated drag mechanisms which allow the line to escape if the fish pulls on it.
We're getting bit. Go ahead a little. Watch behind us. Watch right there. Watch behind the boat. See the fin there? Oh! Check it out. We're getting bit.
The fish can be fought while the fisherman sits in a fighting chair.
Don't let me leave. All right, we'll let you go. Hey, we're hooked up right now.
What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, turn the handle when you can, but just hang on right now.
I'm just hanging on.
There we saw the first bite.
There you go.
Much to my surprise, as well as surprising the fish, I caught and then released a 6-foot sandbar shark. Anticipating my inability to catch lunch, Captain Dave was kind enough to share.
Cilantro. I don't hear anybody complaining. They're too busy eating.
The cost of a suitable boat, electronics, tackle, and the operating costs, fuel, insurance, mooring fees, and maintenance, can be quite substantial. As a result, many big game anglers use charter services where they hire the use of a boat and equipment and the fish-finding expertise of the captain. Each year, thousands of people interested in sport fishing come to the Palm Beaches to charter. I'd like to conclude this program with a traditional fisherman's prayer. Dear Lord, please grant me the serenity to accept the size of the fish that I actually caught, the courage not to lie about it, and the wisdom to know that if I did lie about it, no one would believe me anyway. And on that note, I would like to thank you for watching Travels and Traditions. Hope you will join us next time. I'm Burt Wolfe. But wait, there's more. Whenever we edit one of our programs, we always end up with more good material than we can fit in. Interviews, stories, recipes. So we decided to put them on our website, burtwolfe.com.